The cemetery was quiet that morning. A soft fog rolled through the rows of headstones, clinging to the grass like a shroud. The only sound was the distant cry of a crow and the faint rustle of leaves brushing against the cold wind. Near the edge of the graveyard, beside an old oak tree, a dog sat. His fur was faded, his eyes dim, and his body thin from years of waiting. He didn't move much anymore, just enough to lift his head when footsteps echoed nearby. But when he saw strangers, he'd lower it again, resting his muzzle against the grave he had guarded for so long. 5 years had passed since the day his world ended. His name was Max, a golden retriever once full of life, laughter, and loyalty. He had belonged to an elderly man named Henry, a widower who lived alone in a small cottage on the outskirts of town. For years, they were inseparable, every morning walk, every quiet dinner, every evening by the fireplace. Henry used to say, "You're all I've got, Max." And Max understood. His world began and ended with Henry. But time has a way of taking what we love most. One winter morning, Henry didn't wake up. The neighbors found him still in his chair, the fire burned low, and Max lying at his feet, whimpering softly. When they carried Henry away, Max followed the car until his legs gave out. He sat at the gate for days, refusing food, refusing comfort, waiting for his best friend to come back. The day of the funeral was cold and gray. Henry's family, distant relatives who hardly knew him, gathered briefly to say their goodbyes. They noticed Max sitting quietly beside the coffin, eyes fixed, tail still. When the burial was done and the people left, Max didn't move. He just stayed there, lying on the fresh dirt, nose pressed against the soil as if trying to reach the man beneath. That night, the groundskeeper, an old man named George, tried to coax Max away. "Come on, boy," he said softly, holding out food. But Max refused. He wouldn't leave. And from that day on, he never truly did. Through rain, snow, and burning summer heat, Max kept his silent vigil. Every morning, he'd lie beside the grave. Every evening, he'd curl up under the oak tree nearby. George began bringing him scraps of food, water, and an old blanket. Soon, others noticed, visitors, mourners, people passing by. They'd leave bits of food or pat his head. But Max didn't seem to want anyone's comfort. He wanted one person, the one who would never come back. The years blurred together. The seasons changed, leaves fell, snow blanketed the earth, and flowers bloomed again. Yet Max remained. His fur grayed, his body weakened, but his loyalty never wavered. People started calling him the guardian of the graveyard. Local newspapers wrote about him, and soon he became something of a legend, a symbol of love that even death couldn't break. Children came with their parents just to see him, leaving notes beside the grave that read, "You're a good boy, Max." But love like that takes a toll. One cold February morning, George found Max struggling to stand. His legs trembled, his breath shallow. George knelt beside him, tears filling his eyes. "You've done enough, old friend," he whispered. But Max, even then, turned his head toward the grave, resting his paw on it as if saying goodbye. That evening, as the sky turned a soft shade of pink and gold, George returned with a blanket. He found Max lying still beside Henry's grave, his head resting where it always had been. The air was quiet. The wind had stopped. It was as if even nature held its breath in respect. George sat down beside him, his hands trembling as he placed them gently on Max's fur. "You kept your promise," he murmured. The next morning, word spread quickly. People from town came to the cemetery, bringing flowers, candles, and photos. Someone placed a small wooden sign beside Henry's tombstone that read, "Here lies Henry," and beside him, Max, his loyal friend who never left his side. The town decided to bury Max right next to Henry, where he had spent all those years guarding the man he loved. The mayor himself attended the small ceremony, saying, "There are few friendships as pure as this." Max didn't understand death, he only understood love. As the sun set that evening, golden light spilled across the graves. The oak tree swayed gently in the wind, and the sound of birds echoed faintly. For the first time in 5 years, the spot by Henry's grave was empty, but somehow it felt full. Full of love, devotion, and peace. People still visit that cemetery today. Some bring their dogs. Some come alone, sitting quietly by the gravesite, feeling something unspoken, a reminder that loyalty doesn't end when life does. And sometimes, when the fog is thick and the wind is just right, The groundskeeper swears he still hears the soft padding of paws and the faint sound of a dog sighing contently under the oak tree. Because some bonds, no matter how much time passes, never truly die.